This year would have marked Elsa Avila's 20th year teaching at Uvalde CISD. She was in her 4th grade classroom with the students when the gunman walked in. She tells me the thought of stepping back into a classroom is overwhelming.
Miss Avila, 4th grade.
Decorations that once brought life to Elsa Avila's 4th grade classroom at Robb Elementary School
A student gave me this one.
now sit in brown boxes.
Every year, I was there.
In class, preparing for the school year, just like her siblings, a family of educators.
This is my other sister that she teaches 5th grade at Flores Elementary.
But after a 30-year teaching career,
It's different this year.
this year, Avila is focused on recovering physically, mentally, and emotionally after a mass shooting left 19 students and 2 teachers dead at her school and paralyzed her passion.
Sometimes I sleep with my light on. I can't handle the dark because we were in the dark for an hour.
On May 24th, after an awards ceremony, Avila and her students headed back to room 109.
They were all just so happy and laughing and smiling.
An excitement that quickly vanished when students heard screams coming from the hallway.
I heard a teacher yelling, "Get in your rooms, get in your rooms."
She says she slammed her door shut to latch the lock. Minutes later,
We heard the gunshots.
Avila tried to calm her students.
I stood from my crouch position to motion to them to come nearer to me. And as I stood is when I felt the impact on my lower abdomen. I felt the gunshot.
She says she texted her family and the school vice principal.
And I told her, "I'm shot."
Terrified students checked on her.
The 2 little girls that were closest to me would come and they would tap on my shoulder. They would try to move me and they would say, "You're going to be okay, miss. It's okay. We love you. We love you."
Help finally arrived an hour after she was shot.
My biggest fear was I'm going to die in front of my students.
She's still haunted by the terror that swept across the campus.
I was there to protect them, but they ended up having to help themselves or trying to help me.
Avila was flown to a hospital in San Antonio. She later found out one of her students was injured by shrapnel. A heart-wrenching reality and trauma now holding her back from teaching.
My biggest fear is that I won't be able to handle it, that I won't, that I'll have a meltdown or that I'll have, that an anxiety attack or a panic attack.
What message do you have to kids going back to school this week?
That they can move forward, that they are strong, they're brave. They've already been through the hardest thing that anyone can go through.
Avila tells me she's considering returning back to teaching in the spring, but says it's just too early to make that decision. Addie Guajardo, Uvalde, Texas.
One of the reasons researchers say we haven't gotten a good handle on gun violence is we don't know enough about it. In 1996, Congress passed what is known as the Dickey Amendment. It prohibited the use of federal funds to, quote, advocate or promote gun control. At the time, that meant research. That changed in 2018 after the Parkland school shooting, but researchers say we're still playing catch up when it comes to what we know about gun violence.
Incremental small progress can only take you so far. You need to not only fund it proportionately, but we also need to make up for lost time.
For years, Mike Anestis has been making do with what he's been given. In 2020, he assumed the role of executive director of the New Jersey Gun Violence Research Center, one of only 3 state-funded gun violence research institutions in the nation. It was established with a $2 million grant in 2018. Each year, it receives an additional $1 million from the state to fund its work.
This research has been going on, but at a much slower rate. How much is that rate retarded by the amount of funding that is available?
Massively. I think there are a lot of folks who've been devoted to scientific research on this area despite a lack of funding.
As we mentioned, research slowed mightily with the passage of the NRA-backed Dickey Amendment in 1996, which took $2.6 million in annual CDC funding for firearm research and lowered it to $100,000 per year. It meant studies at the time were limited in both reach and scope as researchers tried to scrap together what they could from minor grants and university support. Researchers like Mike say it also sent a clear message to those doing this work.
It's not just the lack of number of studies that are out there or the lack of sheer dollars that are out there, we haven't been pulling new minds in this to think about it. So we don't even know what we could have known in the past because those folks who would have thought about these questions differently went in an entirely different direction with their career.
When things changed after the Parkland school shooting and funding was made available again, it was and remains below what some had hoped. To this day, Congress allocates $25 million in annual firearm research, with half of it going to the CDC and the other half going to the National Institutes of Health. Both agencies acquire smaller grants from other sources as well. When you consider the National Institutes of Health $41.7 billion annual research budget and the way it funds important research for things like cancer, HIV and AIDS, and Alzheimer's compared to the number of lives it took in 2020, the funding for firearm research is disproportionate. And as Mike said earlier, it's not only affecting what research is being done, but who is doing it.
So it's not just talking about the money available for research, it's talking about the money available to pay the minds to do the research.
Yes, we need to create a viable career path for people to be able to do this and sustain their career doing this. Otherwise, they'll go a different direction the same way anybody does.
For some, there is a strong desire for more money to go to this field. But as the researcher Mike is, he looks at it differently.
I like to think about this from the principle of inertia. How much energy did it take to get this first step? A lot. But once the cart's rolling, does it take that same energy to make progress? Maybe we can move a little bit more forward on these policies with data behind them and bipartisan support now that we've taken this first step.
In New Brunswick, New Jersey, I'm Dan Grossman.
A powerful display against gun violence is making its way across the country.
Every time you see a line of school buses, there's a big chance it's us.
We'll take you inside that exhibit next.